All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Always exciting to be back.
And today we're going to go head first into something that I know is on a lot of people's minds.
Oh yeah.
We're talking Kubernetes.
Ooh, yeah. It's a hot
It
topic.
really is. It's one of those things where you talk to some people and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing. This has changed my life."
Yeah.
And then you talk to other people and they're like, "This is the bane of my existence."
It can be very polarizing.
So we're going to we're going to dive in and try to understand all of that.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, though, I think it's helpful to take a step back and just say, in very simple terms, what is Kubernetes actually doing?
Yeah, Kubernetes is about managing containers. So it's about making sure that all these containers that your application is built on are running properly.
So when we say containers, we're talking about like the little individual piece of the application all packaged up.
Exactly, like little Lego blocks that all fit together to make your application work.
Okay, and so Kubernetes is like the master builder that's making sure all the Legos are in the right place.
Yes, and making sure they can talk to each other and making sure that if one of them falls down, it gets replaced quickly.
Okay, so it's kind of like it's managing the whole life cycle of these containers.
Right? From start to finish, deployment scaling, making sure they're healthy, everything.
Okay, so it's doing a lot, and that probably explains why some people find it complex.
Definitely there's a lot going on under the hood.
So let's talk about that complexity.
hmm
What are some of the main complaints that you hear from people who are struggling with Kubernetes?
I think the biggest one is just the learning curve. There's a lot of new concepts, a lot of new terminology. It can feel overwhelming.
It's not something you can just pick up in an afternoon.
No, it takes time and effort to really wrap your head around it all.
So you really have to kind of immerse yourself in the Kubernetes world.
Yeah, you have to kind of dive in and be prepared to spend some time learning.
And even then, you're probably going to make some mistakes along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone does. It's part of the process.
Okay, so learning curve is a big one. What else?
YAML files. Oh, those YAML files.
YAML hell, as they call it.
Yes, it's a very common complaint, and for good reason, those configuration files can get really long and complicated.
And it's easy to mess them up.
Oh yeah, one little typo and your whole application can come crashing down.
So it's like you're walking on eggshells with these YAML files.
Pretty much have to be very careful and precise.
Okay, so learning curve, YAML. What else are people complaining about?
The sheer number of tools and add-ons, it feels like you need a million different things just to make Kubernetes work.
So it's not just Kubernetes itself, it's all the stuff that comes with it.
Exactly. You've got monitoring tools, logging tools, networking tools, security tools. It can get out of hand quickly.
It's like the tool to manage your tools problem.
Exactly. You start with this idea of simplifying things, and then you end up with this huge stack of tools.
All right, so we've heard from the Kubernetes skeptics, the ones who are struggling with the complexity. But let's flip it around now and talk about the people who love Kubernetes.
Okay.
The ones who swear by it, the ones who say this is the best thing since sliced bread. What are they seeing that's making them so happy?
Well, for those power users, Kubernetes really can be a game changer. It gives them a level of control and flexibility that they just wouldn't have otherwise.
So it's not just hype. There's real substance behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, give me an example. What kind of things can they do with Kubernetes that they couldn't do before?
Well, for one, they can deploy their applications with a single command across an entire cluster of machines.
So that it's like super efficient deployment.
Exactly, and they can scale their applications up or down automatically based on demand.
So no more scrambling to add servers when there's a traffic spike?
Right. Kubernetes handles all of that automatically.
Wow, that's impressive. What else?
They can roll out updates without any downtime, so their applications are always available.
So it's like seamless updates, no more interrupting service.
Exactly. It's all done behind the scenes.
Okay, so that's pretty powerful. It sounds like Kubernetes is really giving these developers a lot of control and flexibility.
It is. It's like putting them in the driver's seat of their infrastructure.
So I'm starting to see the appeal, but I'm guessing this level of sophistication isn't necessary for every project, right?
That's right. Not every application needs Kubernetes.
So how do you know when Kubernetes is the right tool for the job? When do you really need to bring in the big guns?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? Is Kubernetes right for you?
So what are the signs, what are the telltale signs that you should be thinking about Kubernetes?
Well, if you're building an application that needs to scale really quickly or handle a lot of traffic.
But like a high traffic website or a mobile app with a lot of users.
Exactly. Or if you need your application to be highly available, like it can't go down.
So downtime is not an option.
Right, then Kubernetes could be a good fit.
Okay, so it's really for those applications that have those kind of demanding requirements.
Yeah, it's built for those use cases where you need that extra level of control and reliability.
Okay, so what about the people who don't need all that? What about the applications that are simpler, that don't have those huge demands? Are there other options for them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kubernetes isn't the only game in town.
So what else is out there? What are some of the alternatives?
Well, if you're just building a simple website or a small app, you might be better off with a platform as a service.
PaaS.
Yeah, like Google App Engine or AWS Elastic Beanstalk.
What's the advantage of using a PaaS?
Well, they take care of all the infrastructure for you, so you don't have to worry about servers or scaling or any of that stuff.
So you can just focus on writing your code?
Exactly. You just deploy your app and let the platform handle the rest.
Sounds pretty convenient.
It's a great option for a lot of developers.
Okay, so PaaS is one alternative. What else?
Well, if you want a bit more control over your environment, you could use Docker Compose.
Okay, I've heard of Docker, but what's Docker Compose?
So Docker Compose lets you define and manage multi-container applications.
So you can have multiple containers working together.
Exactly, and you can define all of that in a single YAML file.
Okay, so it's kind of like Kubernetes, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah, it's a good option for local development and testing, and you can even use it to deploy small applications to production.
So it's kind of like a stepping stone to Kubernetes.
In a way, yeah, it gives you some of the same benefits, but on a smaller scale.
All right, so paste Docker Compose, and of course we can't forget about good old-fashioned virtual machines.
Right, VMs are still a solid option for a lot of use cases.
Especially if you need more control over the operating system and the underlying hardware.
Yeah, and for some applications, they can be more cost-effective than Kubernetes.
So it really depends on the specific needs of the application.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
All right, so we've got a good range of options here. Paste Docker Compose VMs Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So how do you choose? How do you know which one is right for you?
Well, it comes down to a few factors: the size and complexity of your application, your budget, your team's expertise.
So you really have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of each option.
Exactly, and figure out what makes the most sense for your situation.
But what about the future? I mean, technology is always changing. Are these the only options we're going to have forever? Or are there new things on the horizon?
Oh, there are definitely new things emerging all the time. The world of infrastructure management is constantly evolving.
Ooh, I love that. So spill the tea. What's coming down the pipeline? What should we be looking out for?
Well, one of the most exciting trends is serverless computing.
Serverless, okay. I've heard that term, but I'm not really sure what it means.
So with serverless, you don't have to worry about...
There's no more configuring infrastructure.
Exactly. You just focus on the code, and the platform handles all the scaling and deployment and everything.
Wow, that sounds amazing. But doesn't that mean giving up a lot of control?
It does to some extent, but for a lot of developers, the benefits outweigh the risks.
So it's a trade-off. You gain simplicity and scalability, but you lose some level of control.
Right, and that's something you have to consider. Is that trade-off worth it for you?
Okay, so serverless is one trend. What else is out there?
Well, another trend is the rise of edge computing.
Edge computing. Yeah, okay, I'm not familiar with that one either.
So edge computing is about moving computation and data storage closer to the users.
So instead of having everything in a central data center...
Right, you distribute things out to the edge of the network.
And what's the advantage of that?
Well, it can reduce latency and improve performance for users, especially for things like IoT devices and real-time applications.
So it's all about getting the data and the processing power closer to where it's needed.
Exactly.
Okay, so serverless edge computing, it sounds like the future of infrastructure management is going to be pretty exciting.
It definitely is. There's a lot of innovation happening, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Well, I'm definitely feeling inspired to learn more about all of this. But before we go, I want to bring it back to our listeners. What are the key takeaways they should be walking away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that there's no one right answer when it comes to infrastructure management.
It's all about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And the right tool might be Kubernetes, or it might
Yeah.
be something else entirely.
So don't be afraid to experiment. Try different things and see what works best for you.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are a lot of resources available online and in the community.
And don't forget to have fun. This stuff is really cool when you get into it.
It is. It's a really exciting time to be working in technology.
Well, I'm definitely feeling energized and ready to tackle some new challenges.
Me too. Let's go build something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talk about all this technology and all this complexity.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all about people.
Right. It's about the people who are building these systems and the people who are using them.
Exactly. And that's something I think it's easy to lose sight of sometimes.
Yeah, we get so caught up in the technical details that we forget about the human element.
And the human element is so important because technology is ultimately a tool to help people.
Right. It's about solving problems, making life easier, connecting people.
And that's what I love about working in tech is that you have the opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing feeling when you see something you built actually being used and making a positive impact.
Absolutely. And that's what keeps me motivated is knowing that the work I'm doing is helping someone somewhere.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up.
Okay.
But before we go, I want to give a huge thank you to you for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's always a treat to have you on the show.
I always enjoy our conversations.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in and joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you learned something new.
And we hope you're feeling inspired to go out there and build something amazing.
Absolutely. The future is yours to create.
So until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
See you on the next deep dive.
Bye, everyone.